everyone. This is David Stark from WatcherPass.com, your website for movie reviews, interviews, and recommendations. Today I have a spooky review for you because I'm going to talk about The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, or as I'll probably call it in this review, The Conjuring 3. It's the third Conjuring film. That's the films with Ed and Lorraine Warren, who are played by Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga. And this is the kind of return to form. The Conjuring The Conjuring itself, the first one, is probably my favorite horror movie of all time. I loved it. It's kind of the film that got me into horror because I thought it was such a well done atmospheric experience, and it was one of those films that just kind of like started me on this journey to see more horror. And The Conjuring 2 was similar. It was a little bit more over the top, but it still had a lot of the things that made The Conjuring such a great film. It was about a possession. It had this amazing chemistry between Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga. It had really good effects and a really nice slow build up. I loved that about the first Conjuring. The effects were in your face. They were very kind of gradual, and there would be a little bit here, a little bit there, but overall the film just had this wonderful sense of atmospheric tension. And The Conjuring 2 had that as well, though it went a little bit more extreme. And then they started making spin-off movies that just didn't have the same feel. They felt like they were trying to expand the Conjuring universe and kind of capitalize on the success of that film, but they just didn't have what made the Conjuring so special. So this is the third film in the Conjuring franchise. You have Ed and Lorraine back again. It involves a real world case that actually did take place, although the film takes plenty of liberties with it. And you have a possession at the start of this boy David that the Warrens are at to kind of help exorcise the demon. And during this possession, the demon jumps from David, the young son, to Arnie, who is the boyfriend of the daughter in the family. And so everyone thinks everything is fine, the demon's gone, the boy recovers, but then Arnie starts to exhibit some demonic possession type attributes and attitudes. And so eventually it comes to a head and he murders his landlord. And the whole crux of the film is that during his defense for murder, the defense pleaded that he was not guilty by reason of demonic possession. It was, I guess the first time in modern legal history that they had tried to do that. And so the film deals with the Warrens trying to get proof for this possession, and it leads them down this really intense rabbit hole that involves satanic cults and multiple possessions and multiple murders. It is definitely the biggest film in the kind of the Conjuring franchise. It kind of spans the most distance. It has the most the most possession. It also has the most bloodshed, good or bad depending on your view. So that is kind of the basic synopsis of The Conjuring 3. I'm going to go through 3 things I liked about the film, 3 things I didn't like about the film. I think overall I liked a lot about this film. I think it's a fun movie, but I don't think it's one that you kind of have to go out and see. It's coming to theaters and HBO Max. So if you have HBO Max, put it on. It'll be a good kind of popcorn flick for a night. Turn off the lights and enjoy that. I wouldn't go to theaters, I think, to see it, or I wouldn't go out of your way. If you like these types of films, you might enjoy it, but there's some things that I just didn't love about this movie. So the first thing I loved about this movie is the return of the Warrens. Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga are back, and they're just fantastic together. It's really nice to see them headline a film. I like their chemistry. I like their characters. Their characters really do complement each other. Patrick Wilson's kind of more of a man of God, more of a stronger figure, and then Vera Farmiga is more. I mean, she's strong. Like, sorry, I didn't mean to say that, but she has more of a spiritual side to her. She's more kind of in tune with the otherworldly, and so her character often becomes a little more vulnerable because she's dealing with spirits and things that are outside of most people's control. So she kind of needs Ed in this case to bring her back and snap back to reality. So seeing them on screen is really great. I really loved their chemistry, and also Vera Farmiga has this really wonderful way of kind of showing that she's seen something else, showing that she's seen a vision, and her look will change and she'll kind of look off screen, and it's really kind of striking to see back on screen. It's really striking that to see them back. So I loved their return. The second thing I loved is the special effects. This film is big. It has a lot of very big effects, demonic possession activities, scratches that appear on the wall, contorting people because their body is not under their control. There's a lot of explosions involving glass because that's a really great kind of effect to see. And the film does a wonderful job with it. Sometimes you'll have these horror films that try to do too much, and you can tell either the budget wasn't up there or they had to cut corners. But The Conjuring 3 just doesn't cut any corners. The effects are phenomenal, and they are a sight to behold. The third thing is there is a sense of tension, and now this film has less tension than I think some of the other movies in the Conjuring franchise, but there are definitely scenes where you're going to be holding your breath. The characters will be investigating some dark room, and they'll see they'll see something off in the distance, or they'll hear a sound, and you will be waiting to see what happens. And the film also sometimes plays with that, where there was one scene where Arnie was investigating a rat that had kind of gone into a hole, and he was looking in the hole, and you expected something to pop out of the hole, and so the entire time you were waiting, and then he turns around and boom, there's the ghost, or the demon in that case. And so it definitely has that sense of tension and sense of kind of unease that The Conjuring is known for. So those are the three things I really loved. Three things I didn't love about this film. The first, The Conjuring has always been, a really interesting movie because it has been based on true events, and that's what was so special about the first movie, is that it was a haunted house, and so all these things could happen in the house, and because it's kind of self-contained, there's always this question of, well, what happened? Like, no one knows. The only people that know are in the room. And so you could have these kind of strange events happen, but there was always this level of kind of plausibility. Even if it went a little extreme, there's still this level of plausibility to it. The Conjuring 3 is based on true events, but the movie really kind of spins out. In the actual story that happened is that Arnie did kill his landlord. I guess there was a heated argument, and his landlord, I guess he kind of wouldn't let some people leave, and so Arnie got angry and stabbed him. And the whole "Devil Made Me Do It" story actually never even appeared in court. The film kind of dances around that, but the judge apparently just didn't even allow that defense, because the judge said, probably rightfully so, that there was no way you could prove it. There was no way to get proof in court, and so the defense could not be brought. But The Conjuring 3 tries, I guess, to imagine how they would prove it, and so it goes down these rabbit holes of a satanic panic type activity. You've got it implies a cult, although spoilers. There's gonna be a lot of spoilers right now when I'm talking about this. If you don't want spoilers, please go to the website, watcherpass.com. My written review's up there. It's spoiler free. It's more vague, so you can kind of get an idea. If you want to know more, here we go. So it implies that there is this sort of kind of satanic cult that is behind this, and it goes down this kind of satanic panic rabbit hole, which just felt a little off. It felt like a kind of a relic of an older time. And eventually you find out that there was this one witch, demonic cultist, whatever you want to call her, who was kind of possessing these people and doing these rituals. And she felt a little bit, she was supernatural, but she felt a little bit too much. It felt a little too kind of Bond villain-esque. The events lead to murders in multiple areas, and they lead to this this internal church, leads to this internal church issue as well. And it just felt like this movie tried to do too much. What I loved about the original films is that there was this feeling of plausible deniability. You could say, well, look, like, what happened in the house, no one would know. But in this film, the events are too big, and there's no way that this wouldn't have gotten out. And when I'm seeing a movie that's based on true events, I want some grounding in reality. If it gets a little bit too much outside of that, it feels like they shouldn't have even tried this based on true events moniker. And it feels like this feels like this could be a very good separate horror film, like something about like, the possession murders or something like that, something where you don't try to ground it in reality. But the fact that they do this makes it feel like a different type of movie, and not the Conjuring movies that I love. And maybe that's just, maybe I'm too old school in this. Maybe it's still an exciting expansion of the franchise, but I just didn't. It felt a little bit too much. It felt like the film jumped the shark, and I kind of felt that with Annabelle Comes Home as well. It felt like the movie tried to do too much and tried to break too much from what made the original films so great and so special. The next thing I didn't love, and I've kind of mentioned it earlier, is that the film goes down this kind of satanic panic rabbit hole. And I guess if there was some basis in the actual story about that, then that would be one thing. But it feels like this was just kind of tacked on to have a larger occult aspect to this story. And again, that's why I think this might have been a better film as a separate movie that didn't have a based on true events, because in the actual story, at least what I've read, maybe I didn't read enough, there wasn't any sort of underlying outside influence. It was just that there was a possession, and then the possession allegedly passed to the boyfriend, and then the boyfriend killed someone, and then that was never actually proven in court. So the fact that they tied in this kind of occult aspect, this underground satanic aspect, just it felt like a relic of a different time, something that is a little bit less, a little bit less scary now than it was back in the days. And maybe they're trying to be time appropriate or tied into something. But the Conjuring films also do feel like more of a modern spin on some old possession movies, and so the fact that they went that way, this just didn't feel right to me. It felt like they were trying to cram too much into this film, and that ties in with the third thing about this movie. The movie was long, and it wasn't overly long for a film, right? It was an hour 51 or hour 52, something along those lines, which is in line with past Conjuring movies. But I think because they tried to do so much and they pulled in all these subplots, it felt like a longer movie than I think the previous films had. It felt like they were almost, they weren't globetrotting, but they were going back and forth to different locales and looking and investigating other murders and using her powers in these other areas. And it just felt like this movie spanned too much, again, to ground it, or to be a movie that's based on true events. And so I think if they had trimmed some of those aspects out, this might have been a more streamlined film. It might have been something that was more believable. I mean, I think the big problem I have with this movie is that there's nothing really believable in this film because they went so big and because they made this such an event. It kind of lost that plausibility that The Conjuring and The Conjuring 2 had. So that's my review. Look, I'm happy that they're back. I love Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga. I love this series, and I'm happy it's around. I just wish that it had stayed true to its roots and not kind of gone into a larger movie hole. Maybe the next one, I'm sure they'll make a next one. Maybe the next one will be more grounded. But I also kind of get the impression from this film that this might be one of the last Conjuring proper movies. They might continue with the cinematic universe. They might continue with other side stories, but it felt like they were setting up Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga to kind of have a graceful exit after this film, or maybe another one after this. So that was my take of The Conjuring 3. In my online review, I said rent it, which basically means you don't have to go out and see it in theaters immediately. You can wait for it to come to streaming, or wait for it to come to some sort of rental service. Now, thankfully for everyone, it's coming to HBO Max day and date. So if you have an evening, you want a little scare, you want some horror in your night, throw it in. It's not going to be a bad experience. But I just didn't think it was something that needed to be seen, and it also felt like it was a departure from what made the film so special. So thank you so much for watching. If you liked this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot to make sure all my new content goes straight to you. And as always, please go to watcherpass.com for all your movie reviews, interviews, and recommendations. Thank you.